Hi everyone, this is Mara the Ring Hedgehog with my video review of Jackie by John Tammela. This was sent to me by the author for review, which I have done. So first I will give you my synopsis. So, Jackie was an average kid growing up in a Finnish household in Niagara Falls, Canada, in the late 1930s and early 40s. He had two older brothers, Eric, who picked on him, Army, who was great at building forts and battle games, and an older sister called Lisa, who was a bit too keen on schooling him. In this true story, you can join Jackie on his adventures as he deals with the pains of growing up, from the terrors of the school nurse to the pangs of his first crush, with a good few snowball fights thrown in for good measure. Well, after all, it is Canada, the land of ice and snow. So, obviously, I was supposed to give an honest review to this book, and I gave an honest review with this book. I gave it 1 out of 5 strawberries, and I'll explain. So, this is technically nonfiction. It's an autobiography about John Tammela when he was growing up in the late 1930s and early 1940s in Niagara Falls, Canada. But it's written like a novel, and it's intended for middle grade. When I started this book, about maybe the first 3 very long chapters, I was like, this is okay. I kind of get it. It's like talking to your granddad about how he grew up as a kid. I get that. But after the first 3 chapters, it was literally like pulling teeth trying to get through this. Not hair, it was like pulling teeth, which obviously would be much more painful. That's how painful I found this book. And I am not intentionally trying to be mean. I'm being honest. And there's just no other way I can think of putting it. It was like pulling teeth. Childhood stories are hard to do. I do understand that because, let's face it, most of us did not have that interesting of a childhood. It's not interesting to you unless you experienced it, really. But the way you can make childhood stories interesting is if you have a writing style that somehow makes it come alive with the magic of childhood, or you're really funny, like Patrick F. McManus. He writes about his childhood a lot, and he's a comedian, essentially. I mean, he writes in a very hilarious way, so like these minor events in childhood really become these huge, hilarious catastrophes. They're a lot of fun to read. This, not so much. It was just boring. I felt exactly the way it was. A person reflecting on their childhood, but without the magic of the child. I mean, there was no magic in this book, and when I mean magic, like, you know the feeling of when you were a kid, and the simplest thing became an adventure. There was none of that in his writing. The dialogue was stilted. There were paragraphs and paragraphs about things that are unnecessary, like making a snowball, and it wasn't in like a really humorous, funny way. It was just making a snowball. There was an entire chapter devoted to a Cub Scout adventure that got a little treacherous. It was really dull. It was not treacherous at all. It was just boring. And quite honestly, this book kind of started where I thought it should have began. It ended where I thought it should have started. It ends with Jackie and his family moving to Toronto, and that's kind of where it ends. And to me, I'm like, why didn't this book start here? I think it would be much more interesting to read about Jackie moving to Toronto and getting to know a new place and meeting new friends and things like that. That would be much more interesting. This was just boring. And like, the author doesn't talk about any of the current events. Like, yes, everyone knows that World War II was going on during that, or at least everyone should know that. But there was no fleshing out of the era. He did nothing to make us fall in love with the era, the town. He didn't talk about the town's history. He didn't even really talk about his parents' history. He didn't talk about any, like, his neighbors' history, or people he knew, their history, or, like, current events, or anything like that. And yeah, he may not have been aware of a lot of it as a kid. I mean, he was, like, maybe 8 or 9 when all that happened. I can understand that, but for the benefit of the reader, you need to expand. You need to explain more, and especially when you're writing it as a novel format, you can get by with that. And it was just, it was boring. The kid on this cover expresses exactly how I started feeling. Well, not even halfway through. Another thing that really kind of bothered me that especially since it's supposed to be middle grade, is there were 2 parts in this book that were disturbing. One of them was when Jackie had to go to the hospital because his appendix burst, and his nurse was giving him a vinegar bath. And I think I marked it. And it's just, maybe it's the way it's written, but I don't think it is, because I'm not the only person who did find this disturbing, so I'm going to read it to you. Bula spread his legs apart just a little so she could wash his private parts. She had done this before, so Jackie knew what was coming. "And what do you do in your art classes?" she asked, as her soapy, slippery hand slowly maneuvered its way around the whole area. For some reason, this caused Jackie to move his legs further apart. He didn't object at all, because it felt, well, good. Is it just me, or is that creepy? That's creepy. And he's like 6, I think, at this time. I don't remember exactly. But that's creepy. It really, really is just disturbing. I was disturbed. Are you disturbed? I hope you're disturbed, because that's disturbing. That just, I don't know if maybe the author was trying to convey that he felt like maybe he was molested by this nurse. I don't know. But it was just disturbing. And especially since this is supposed to be middle grade. I just, no. So this other part takes place when Jackie is 9, and he has this crush on a neighbor girl. And they're playing hide and seek, and so she and him go and hide underneath a porch. So this is kind of what happens. Jackie could feel the softness and fullness of her thigh as his hand moved around the plumpness of her upper leg. He never felt such a sensation before. Anne moved her outstretched leg so that it was resting over his knee and pulled her dress up clear to her waist. Jack's heart was racing as Anne took control of his hand once more. He gradually realized she was taking him somewhere beyond anything he had experienced before in his young life. Whatever happened to innocent kid crushes? I mean, is this how kids are at 9? This actually is not nowadays, so what was his excuse then? That's just, he's 9 years old. He should not be feeling a girl up like that. That's just, I found that disturbing, and just, it bothered me a lot, and yeah, just no, that bothers me a lot. So, yes, I hate to say it, I really do, but Jackie by John Tammela was a snooze fest, and it had some really creepy parts. Those 2 specifically. Those are the only 2, but still, they kind of, that's enough. It was very badly written, and I would not give this to a middle grader, if only for those 2 parts. They would just find it boring. They would find it really boring, and it wasn't a good autobiography. Sorry. But it wasn't, and my goal with my reviews is to be honest. So yes, that's my review for Jackie. I do want to thank the author for letting me read it. It is a lot to send your book, especially an autobiography that you wrote, to people to have critiqued and then have the reviews go out. It is difficult. I do understand that, and it does not give me pleasure to have to critique that harshly, but you asked me to, and I write honest reviews and talk them, record them. So yeah, any questions or comments, leave them below, and if you want to read my review, you can of course follow the link that is in the doodly bob, or whatever you want to call it, the comment box, etc. And I will see you next time. Bye.